Have you ever wondered how a country can just double in size? We're about to dive into a time when the map of the United States didn't just get a little bigger, it was completely redrawn. This is the story of how a young country took a massive gamble that honestly would define its entire future. And it all starts right here. This is what a nation-building gamble looks like on a map, the Louisiana Territory. You see, back in 1800, this was not part of the United States. It was this huge, mysterious chunk of land controlled by France, and it was basically a giant wall blocking America's path to the west. But a wild turn of events over in Europe was about to change everything. And the price tag for all that potential? A cool $15 million. That's it. We're talking pennies an acre. It is, without a doubt, one of the most incredible real estate deals in the history of the world. And this really says it all. With just one signature, the United States literally doubled. This wasn't like adding a new state or two. This was like bolting on an entire unknown continent to the country. So, who was the mastermind behind this unbelievable move? Well, this vision really belongs to one man more than anyone else. And that man was Thomas Jefferson, America's third president. From his home, Monticello, he was dreaming big. He imagined this empire of liberty, a nation of farmers stretching all the way across the continent. And he saw a golden opportunity that was just too good to pass up. Which brings us to how this whole deal actually went down. And what's so fascinating is that it didn't start with a grand plan to buy land. Nope. It started with a very real and very urgent problem. The whole issue revolved around this lifeline you see right here, the Mississippi River. For American farmers out west, this was their economic superhighway. It was the only real way to get their crops to market. The problem? They didn't control the most important port on that river, New Orleans. That meant their entire livelihood was basically in the hands of a foreign country. So Jefferson sends his guys over to France, hoping they can just buy New Orleans. But they showed up at the perfect moment. Napoleon needed cash for his wars in Europe, and he just had a major setback in Haiti. So he makes this shocking counteroffer. Don't just buy the city, buy all of it. So in 1803, the deal was sealed. America got control of the Mississippi and, oh, by the way, doubled the size of the country. So just imagine you're Jefferson for a minute. You've just pulled off this incredible purchase, but what exactly did you just buy? Nobody really knew. Most of it was a complete mystery, just a giant blank space on the map. So the big question became, now what? Well, the answer was pretty straightforward. Send someone to find out. Send someone to go fill in that giant blank. And that decision kicked off one of the most legendary adventures in American history. Jefferson gave his personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis, and an Army captain, William Clark, a very clear to-do list. First, he wanted detailed maps. Second, he wanted a scientific record of all the new plants and animals they found. And third, and this was huge, he wanted them to make contact with the American Indian nations who had lived on this land for centuries. You know, it's hard to wrap your head around just how epic this journey was. The team, called the Corps of Discovery, left from St. Louis in 1804. And for more than 2 years, they pushed through thousands of miles of brutal terrain, over the Rocky Mountains, through deserts, becoming the first Americans to travel all the way to the Pacific Ocean by land and back. And let's be clear, they absolutely could not have done it alone. A Shoshone woman named Sacagawea was, without a doubt, one of the most important members of the expedition. She wasn't just a guide. Her knowledge of the land, her skills as an interpreter, and her very presence as a woman with a child signaled to other tribes that this was a peaceful mission, not an army. But this new, bigger, more confident America was about to face a serious test. A conflict that a lot of people at the time called a second war for independence. Yeah, just a few years after the big purchase, the United States found itself at war with Great Britain. Again. Britain was messing with American ships and even forcing American sailors into the British Navy, and things finally boiled over. This was a fight to prove that the whole American experiment wasn't just a fluke and that it could actually defend itself. And right in the middle of all the chaos of this war, you have this amazing story of personal bravery. As British troops were literally marching to burn down Washington, D.C., First Lady Dolly Madison refused to leave until she had saved a giant portrait of George Washington. In that moment, she wasn't just saving a painting, she was saving a symbol of the nation itself. So who won? Well, if you look at the paperwork, it was basically a tie. The war ended with a peace treaty in late 1814 that pretty much just hit the reset button. No land changed hands, but for America, just surviving a second war against a global superpower created this incredible wave of national pride. The country had been tested, and it was still standing. So we've seen this story through land deals and battles. But to really get inside the heads of the people who lived through it, to understand the ambition and the sheer unknown of it all, we need to understand the main tool they were using to see their world: the map. The key idea here is something called map scale. It's what lets you shrink a whole continent down onto a piece of paper. The first map of the Louisiana Purchase was a perfect example of a small-scale map. It showed a huge area, but it had almost no detail. It told Jefferson that he bought the land, but not what was actually in it. And this is exactly why Lewis and Clark's mission was so important. Their job was to create the first large-scale maps of the West. To zoom in, to chart the rivers, name the mountains, and mark where tribal lands were. They were turning a huge, abstract idea into a detailed, real place. That difference between the small-scale deal and the large-scale discovery on the ground, that's really the heart of this entire story. So think about it. In just 2 decades, a nation doubles in size, charts its own unknown territory, and then fights a war to defend its very existence. The country's physical and even its psychological borders were totally redrawn. Which leaves us with one final question. How does that legacy of rapid, ambitious expansion continue to shape the American identity even now?